216-431-3820 is the number to call in, 216-431-3820, or you can Skype in at Dogs on the Run. Kenny, while you're here, and you're going to be back and forth, we're going to talk Browns all day too. I still want your thoughts on Ohio State and what happened on Saturday night. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly they were doing with Carlos Hyde towards the end of the game. We've been talking about that for 24 hours now. And how devastating of a loss is that for Ohio State? Because I know we have different opinions.
I think it wipes out the 24 wins in a row. I really do, because you didn't beat a top 10 in those 24 wins in a row. This was validation. This was proving your mettle. This was going out for the first time in 2 seasons, playing a top 10 team, and granted it was in the Big Ten, but still they were a top 10 team, and beating that top 10 team and showing that you deserve the credibility, or you've earned the credibility and you deserve respect throughout the country, and you lose by 10 points in a game in which you were favored by, 5.5 points, I think the spread was, going into that game. To me, it just nullifies everything leading up to that, because you can look at that schedule in those first 24 games, and like all the national pundits were saying, they haven't played anybody. They don't deserve a chance to play for the national championship, and that loss to Michigan State proves it. Now they've got to go out and try and gain some of that respect back by beating not a top 10 team, a top, 12 or 13, what is Clemson? Top 12 team, as I look down here, and earn some of that respect back, and then go into next year maybe with some momentum. But to me, it is a devastating loss, worse than back in 1998 when Billy Burke led Michigan State to that upset win in Columbus, because this was for the right to play for the national championship, and they flat out blew it. Terrible coaching, terrible performances on the football field by the defense.
You know, they've renamed the Orange Bowl for these 2 teams, Kenny. It's called the Can't Beat a Top 10 Bowl, because Clemson hasn't beat a top 10 either this year.
Yeah, and you know what? It's apropos. It really is. And unfortunately for the Buckeyes, this stigma is going to be with them until they beat a top 10 team, and that's not going to happen this year. So guess what? Even if they do beat Clemson, it's still not a top 10 team, and that stigma is going to be with them through all of next year until they play and actually beat a top 10 team, and maybe I'll take it a step further, until they play and actually beat a top 10 team that's not in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's just disappointing. I mean, obviously we'll get a chance. We had to get your reaction to Ohio State. Obviously, we got to talk to you Browns.
I'm still
we all
I
are.
really am. Andy and I did the post-game show the other night, and why they didn't ride Hyde to victory is beyond me. Listening to Urban Meyer's post-game press conference saying that he put the ball in the hands of his best player. No, Braxton Miller down the stretch and in that game was not his best player. His best player has been and should have been Carlos Hyde, and he should have been featured like Auburn featured their running back. Gave the rock to him 46 times. He rushed for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and Auburn's playing in the national championship. The Buckeyes didn't do that with their best player as of late, and that's Carlos Hyde.
All right, Kenny, we're going to come back to you in a little bit, so thank you. Stand by. We'll talk more Browns here with you in a couple minutes.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Kenny. All right, let's go back to Eric Cam. Hey, Eric, what do we got going on next?
First, we're going to who's your in the Doghouse player?
Who is our in the Doghouse? We're running that great animation on that, or no?
Yes.
We are? All right, well, look at that. How about that? Uh-oh.
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 The Doghouse.
Oh, what's the flag?
Flag on myself. We're a little late on that.
Well, you know what? Is it me or no? Because if we
it is you.
If we want to do face-off, can we?
Face-off.
See, instead we're going to do it.
All right, you control the button, so you do face-off.
All right, I'm just making. All right.
The Doghouse.
All right, who's in the Doghouse? Eric, who's in your Doghouse? Start things off for it.
My in the Doghouse is our defensive coordinator, Ray Horton. I mean, you play a great game, you shut out the Patriots, and then you don't bring any pressure for the last 2 minutes of the game, and you let the Patriots march down the field. I don't know why they didn't put a linebacker to spy Shane Vereen, but they did the same play over and over and over again, kept dumping it off to him, and it was just frustrating to see them march down the field and not get any pressure on Tom Brady when in the 3 quarters before that, when they were bringing pressure, they were getting to Brady and sacking him.
All right, next up in the Doghouse. Go ahead. What do you got?
This is a tough one because I thought they played their best game of the year for everything but 1 minute of that football game. And unfortunately, we've all seen enough football. You got to play all of them, every minute, every second. I gotta lean towards Chud because there were, and I don't buy the first-year coach. Andy, what are they? 14 games in the season plus 4 preseason games. I'm sorry, that's over. That's like saying a rookie's not is still a rookie. I don't buy that theory because I think Chud's a really good coach. I think he's going to be a very good coach in the NFL. And I don't buy the learning mistakes. They're 13 weeks in. I'll add the 4, so you're 17 weeks in plus a training camp. I'm not buying it, but going for 2, I had a problem with that. I thought it was way too early. They went for 2. Burning timeouts and being in the fourth quarter of a game that, I mean, you knew New England was going to come back. You just knew it on the road and had nowhere to go. To put your team in that situation, in that environment, without any way to get out, and you're going down the field and having to try to ground a ball, I just that hurt them at the end. So I thought there were some costly mistakes. So he's in my doghouse, and only for the lack of the fact that I thought they played, again, completely outside of that one drive, their best game of the season.
All right,
Here's
my in the doghouse. And I agree with everything you said, and I would say that I agree with both of what you're saying about as far as in the doghouse. I seriously think the NFL needs to take a look at this game and say, what are we doing? Because the fact that I can even throw it out there and say, hey, do you think the games are fixed? Or that people are talking about the games being fixed on the radio today, it's bad. It's bad for the NFL. It shouldn't be that way. And, you know, I understand that there is a level of leniency that goes towards the superstar teams, and we've known it ever since the beginning of time. It is entertainment at the end of the day. But it's not good for the NFL to have anyone around it saying, hey, boy, that game really looked fixed. And it's bad. It's bad for football. It's bad for everybody. They need to go back, and they do need to find the referees a little bit on this game because you can't have, especially with one of your own partners, when you're watching a game and all of a sudden you see that CBS immediately following the game, all of their major analysts are going, that's a bad call. So now you've got one of the partners of the NFL in CBS, and let's not all the TV stations are. They're partners with the NFL because that's why the NFL is what it is. But if you're going to turn around and watch a game like that, and then all of a sudden now say, hey, this isn't right and this isn't right, it's bad for football. It really is.
Yeah, and it sets a precedent that you can't come back from unless you make a move for the entire league and say, here's what we're doing. We've looked at the tape of that football game, and we're either docking guys or we're making something drastic. So because the officials, somebody explained it to me best. It might have been, I don't know if it was Reggie Rucker or Coach Sam. They said the officials were officiating scared, like afraid to. And he goes, that's the worst type of official to have. But that's become a product of the NFL. The officials are officiating scared because the league hasn't done anything to make sure that they get it done the right way.
No, it's almost, and I'll bring this up too because, and I saw this in almost every high school playoff game I went to this year, the sideline rule. And the sideline warning in the game you called, the Menor game,
that was crap call
that was
too.
one of those same kind of things where I think officials are in the Ohio High School Athletic Association are doing the same thing. They are officiating scared based on this rule where you got to keep people outside. That whole thing happened because somebody got hurt, and there was a lawsuit against one level of football, and I want to say it was down south. And then all of a sudden, across the board, that sideline warning became a major thing, not only in college but pro, and the Ohio High School Athletic Association takes it very seriously. But is it enough to change the flow and ebb of a game? Look, it's one thing to tell people to get back, and I got it. But to have a sideline warning and then have somewhere down the road have a 5-yard penalty against it, it's goofy. But that's one of the examples of watching officials officiate scared. And really, that's where they are. All of a sudden, you get any kind of hit with contact, and T.J. Ward's hit. I mean, come on.
That's a product of the NFL. The fact that T.J. Ward, that was a clean hit on Gronk, but the fact that you're protecting up here, you're now limiting where these guys have to make a play. These are professional athletes. They're paid to make plays. And if you're taking away this part of my zone with this helmet and everything else, you're limiting the lower extremities, and that's not a good thing. You're going to see guys, that might have ended his career, whether it's they're saying a possible torn ACL and MCL. That could have ended his career more than likely if it did. Hopefully not. But that's a product of what the league's become now because they've limited so many things. And we saw it yesterday. It was it just spiraled and snowballed in that game between the Browns and the Patriots.
Yeah, Eric, did you want in? Because I saw you itching over there.
I did not want in, no.
Oh, okay, I'm making sure. Hey, listen, I'm curious. Are we going to Slyman's here anytime soon? We're already 15 minutes late. So.
We are when he gets there.
Okay, so we'll go to Slyman's there. Again, nice job. I'm glad we had that pre-production meeting. where we were allowed to talk for 30 seconds. How was your other show that you worked on today? How'd that go today?
It was great. It was great. But you know what? I want to hear about. I want to hear from Dorothy, who's on the line waiting patiently.
Oh, Dorothy's waiting on the line. Sorry about
She
that.
doesn't like the Browns dancing in the end zone. She doesn't like the touchdown dancing.
Dorothy, how are you this morning? Thanks for calling Dogs on the Run.
I'm wonderful this morning.
Good morning, Dorothy.
Good morning. I do watch the game from time to time, but I'm just so insulted when they make a touchdown. They do good, not all the time, but to make a touchdown and do the dance, what's that about? I mean,
Which
God
dance?
wants you to be humble.
The,
The dance. Play the
uh,
game.
yeah.
Win the game.
But that's true across the board. That's not just the Browns, right? That's everybody.
Yes, it's
Okay.
not just the Browns. It's players in general.
It's acting like you've been there before. I mean, and that's what I agree with you on that. I mean, look, but people, Dorothy, people will say we're crazy. You and I are, because they're saying when you do that, you're taking all the fun out of the league. And you're
Let us
in
dance. We're
particular-
watching it. Let us do the dance. We're watching the game. Do
but-
your job.
But
You're
I
getting paid
agree.
to do a job. Do it.
your job. I agree with that. But Dorothy, and I agree. Look, we're on the same page. I don't know how you were coached, but I was coached that you don't showboat ever. Never. I was
Right.
watching a mite hockey game yesterday where there were kids showboating afterwards, and I was embarrassed. I mean, in some ways you're like, oh, that's kind of cute, but in the other ways you're teaching kids to taunt other kids on the other side.
Right.
And
I have a grandson that plays football. They don't do that.
well, good for them, and I'm glad they're teaching them that way. But here's the problem: it's entertainment, and the players want to entertain people. They've got a crowd of 100,000. They want to do something special. They know that if they do some kind of crazy dance or do something nutty, that they'll end up in every sportscast. Sports Center will love them and put them on every day. So if you're talking
Win
about
a
making
game.
money, I agree with you. But this is the argument on the other side. I'm just telling you.
They just won a game. That's doing something special. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Dorothy. Good stuff.
She's right. And she is right in a lot of ways. But you see kids mimic what they watch on TV, just like you said at the mite hockey game. I guarantee all those kids have watched an NHL game or an AHL game, whatever it is. The same thing with high school football kids. And I wasn't coached that way. You get in the end zone, you look for the official, and you hand him the football. That's the way, because my coach would sit us. If something like that happened, you weren't going out the next time you were out, whether you're playing offense or defense. So, but it's entertainment. It is on TV. It is for people to watch, and it is part of the league. Now, it's not excess where guys pulling a cell phone out, you're not pulling Joe Horn, but it is entertainment. So you got it's a fine line.
So if you could have it your way, how would it be?
I wouldn't have the showboating. I wouldn't. There's nothing. I don't think anything good comes from guys getting in and making a phone call to somebody or pulling out something and showing the camera. I mean,
There was a
that was
T-
Jordan Cameron. What is that?
I know,
don't
touchdown. What is it?
I have no idea what that meant.
Could mean something to his buddies.
It might be.
Maybe saying hi to his kids.
Meant nothing to me. I had no
I don't know if
idea.
he has kids or not. I shouldn't say that.